Oh, welcome back to The Truth is Viral Live. I'm your host, Bob Powell. And tonight we do have Steve Fletcher on the line. Steve's standing by, and we're going to be talking to him in just a minute. But before we do that, I think we need to get in the right mood. So I've got this favorite little clip that I play, and I hope you like it. It certainly does inspire me.
I am going to introduce you to the gospel right now.
Yes, sir. Let's listen to
You
this.
are a rebel. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, I'll tell you straight up. You are a rebel against the living God. This is your natural disposition. Why? Because you are born in sin. We are in a prison cell. And it takes the awakening and the grace of God, you can call it the prevenient grace of God, to awaken us to the fact that we are lost and we can't get out. We're headed towards destruction. The enemy, because of our rebellion against God, has legal rights to harm and harass our life. There you are behind the prison cell. Help, I need out! You can't get out. Those prison bars are stronger than any adamant. There is no way you can cut them because they're stronger than diamond. It is impenetrable. You cannot escape. You're doomed, because when the enemy comes in the very end, and he's going to finish you off, because he has legal right to do it, and he's going to relish every minute of it. In strolls your intercessor, your mighty man. And he stands between you and that accuser, and he takes the hit that was rightfully yours. He takes the blow that was intended for you. That is an extraordinary reality, that he was turned to a pulp, and he actually died. God died for you. Over your prison cell, it has always said condemned, separated eternally from God, guilty. And then suddenly it switches. When you realize what Jesus Christ has done, it says justified. It says forgiven, redeemed. Here's the problem. Most of us have stopped with the good news right there. The blood of Jesus Christ has been shed, and he was killed. Now, I want you to know that is unbelievable news. But we are still in a prison cell. And so we're praising God from within a prison cell, going, thank you for forgiving me. Thank you for changing the sign on the outside of the prison. And God's word says, could you check the door to the prison cell? Because my blood was shed for more than just forgiveness. Forgiveness was the avenue through which he could make the escape for us. He isn't just interested in dealing with the consequences or the penalty of sin. He's also dealt with the problem of sin. That's the door. It's unlocked. The door to the prison cell is unlocked. Walk out. Smell the open air of freedom and liberty in the life of Jesus Christ. When you get outside the prison cell, there's like this chariot that's waiting. Emissaries from the king, and they say the king beckons you into his presence. You know how bizarre this is when you realize that you were a rebel? That you were undeserving completely. The living God has literally given up his life for you. And now he has set you free. And now the very king is beckoning you into his presence. It's like, are you sure you have the right guy here? I'm a rebel. I stood against my God. I spat in his face. How could he want me? The king beckons you. You get in the chariot. And as you're pulling into the kingdom, you're looking for where they might drop you off. You're looking for that poor district. Saying, where are you taking me? Well, into the very near presence of the king. He wants you to live right where he lives. Not just the penalty, not just the problem, but an invitation into his very near presence. But as you're coming in, the emissaries say, he wants to adopt you as his child. Me? Child? We are brought in and invited near to share his heart. You come into his presence, totally broken before the reality of what he has done for you. I don't deserve this. Why have you done this for me? I love you. I have a commission for you. For me? You want to have me work for you? I want you to work for me. I want you to represent me. Absolutely. Anything I can do for you, just tell me. I need you to go back to that prison cell that I took you out of. because there's a whole bunch more that need to know about me and my love and my truth. Will you go for me? In a heartbeat. I would gladly serve you any way you want, any way you ask. I need to forewarn you. I'm going to send you out, and you'll be as a sheep among wolves. They'll kill you. They'll destroy you. They'll hate you. They'll persecute you. They will do whatever they can to harm you. I'm in. I'll do it, God. I don't care. You shed your blood for me. I'll gladly shed my blood for you. Take my body. Take my blood. Spend it any way you want. I belong to you in covenant. Take me, Lord Jesus. Send me. The commission, not just the penalty, not just the problem, not just the invitation to his very near presence, not just the adoption as a son and a daughter of the King of Kings, but we are commissioned to represent him. And I want you to realize that is a privilege beyond all other privileges, to bear the very name, the very image, the very reputation of God Almighty. And he says, I ask you to go. Go and make disciples of all men. Go and be unashamed of my gospel and preach it. Go, rescue the lost in the power of my name. For is not the Lamb that was slain worthy to receive the reward of his suffering? I'll go. And as you're beginning to head out with his blessing, he says, hold it. Wait, there's one more thing. Not just the penalty, not just the problem, not just the invitation to his very near presence, not just the adoption as the son or a daughter of the King, and not just the commission. This is the capstone. If you think that is all good, you could wrap that all up into one ball and it still falls short of the final one. Because this final one is so condescending on the part of our King. It is so bewildering. It is so extraordinary, so amazing. And this is the truth that turns the world upside down. Before you go, what I'm sending you out to do is impossible. I know. And if you do it in your own strength, you'll fail. I don't care. I'm willing to do whatever you ask of me. And if you want me to go in there and just die, I'm willing. I'm sending you out to be a victor. My children will not lose. Would you give me your body? And I will come in and make it my home. And I will take those hands of yours and make them my hands. I will take those feet of yours and make them my feet. I will take that mouth of yours and it will speak my words. I will take those eyes of yours and they can now see what I need you to be seen in this world. And I will take your heart of stone and make it a heart of flesh so that it will beat with my burdens and you will care for the very things that I care about. And your prayers will become my prayers. And your life and your attitude and your behavior every minute of every day will be the very behavior of God. Will you allow me to overtake your life? Because then we go into this world as little lambs with the faces of lions. Because the living God Almighty, the consuming, almighty, sovereign God dwells within his children. And as we stand and the wolf pack surrounds us, we stand in the authority in the name of Jesus, and we will not back down. Because we do not head off to war to lose. We head off to war to win. Our God mocks all the powers of earth and hell through fluffy little lambs. Because his lambs beat the wolf packs. That's the gospel. The gospel trounces upon all the powers of earth and hell and demonstrates to the universe the manifold wisdom of God, that he is in control. And even though we look weak, and even though physically and naturally we are weak, spiritually, greater is he that is in us than he that is in this world. That is good news. And it is a lot better than what's being dealt out today in the church. We need to rise up, proclaim the gospel, and say, I'm unashamed of it. Dear Lord Jesus, take what is rightfully yours. Don't just send us. Send us with yourself firmly planted within our souls. We cannot do your work. We cannot bring you glory, even though we're willing to do it without you. Please, if you want to come with us, why in the world would we ever try on our own? You don't have to go on your own. You don't have to pull off the impossible on your own. You don't have to fail any longer. Your God is ready to do it in and through you. You can't do it. You can't muster up the discipline. You can't muster up the intellect. You can't muster up the strength. You can't muster up the perseverance. perseverance and the fortitude? He can. You can't love the lost. You can't love those that spit upon your face. He can. Don't pray that God would teach you how to love like he loves. Pray that he would fill you with himself and he would love in and through you. Don't pray that he would teach you to have joy. Pray that the living God full of joy would enter into you. Don't pray that he would teach you how to be peaceful. Ask for the God of peace, the Prince of Peace, to infill you. Because if you try and imitate in your own strength, you will be a miserable replica. But if you allow the impartation of Jesus Christ take you, suddenly it all works. Because it's him imitating himself. And he's very good at being God.
Yes, sir. That's very inspiring. I use that all the time. And the reason is because I'm no preacher. I'm really not. My mom's got to be awfully proud of me, though. Uh, 30 years ago, on a Friday night at 11 o'clock, I'd have 500 people on my dance floor, and they'd be boogieing and having a good old time. I've kind of grown out of that just a little bit. Well, not completely. I still DJ weddings and whatnot every now and then, but there's a big difference between shaking your big booty ghetto or big ghetto booty and doing the chicken dance. So anyway, tonight's show, we've got Steve Fletcher with us. I'll be calling him in just a second. Steve is a new addition at the P.P. Simmons Ministry, and he's got some really interesting theories that I think we should take a look at. So why don't we find our Skype little deal here and give Steve a call. Boop, 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 boop. Steve.
Yeah, how you doing?
Hey, I'm pretty good. How about yourself, bro?
I'm doing great.
Hey, okay, we're on the air actually, and I'm at your site. It's called A Trumpet for My People. And the title of this article that I'm looking at right now is Obama at the Throne of Satan on June 19th, 2013. Can you tell my viewers a little bit about this? First off, what is the Throne of Satan? Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Okay, well, that was quite an introduction there. Going from "Hey, how you doing?" to tell me about the throne of Satan.
Yeah, buddy, I don't waste any time.
You kind of threw me into that. Okay, well, it starts out, right from the top, and it says, okay, this is not, I'm not, I wasn't making any predictions. It's not a hypothesis. I just want to talk about facts, biblical facts and facts that are happening in our world right now that are, provable. And so, the way I started out this whole article, Obama at the Throne of Satan, June 19th. See, he was in Berlin. And the Bible clearly says in Revelation 2:12 and 13, it talks to the angel of the church in Pergamos. And it goes on to say, I know your works and where you dwell, where Satan's throne is. Okay, so Pergamos was the home of the throne of Satan. It was the altar of Zeus. Okay, and it goes back. We could take this all the way back to at least to Antiochus Epiphanes. 150 years before, 168 years before Christ, and then it was turned over to the Romans. After the Roman Empire took over. It was the Syrians during Epiphanes, and then the Romans took over. And then it ended up in ruins in Pergamos in Turkey, this altar. Okay, so this is an actual altar, and that's what Pergamos was known for. It was known for this shrine, this altar of Zeus, and that was the home. From the time that Jesus said it, and Jesus spoke this to John in Revelation, right? And so this was still in the first century, and at that time, that's exactly where the throne was. Okay, but there's an interesting fact that many people don't know, that and I have this all in this article. I have this all documented, and there's links to the articles. But this actual shrine to the throne, to the altar of Zeus, and this throne of Pergamos was moved from Pergamos in the late 1800s to Berlin. People didn't know this, but there's a museum in Berlin. It's actually the actual altar. It's the throne of Satan, altar of Zeus, that was in ruins. So they took all the pieces, they put all the pieces back together, and they shipped them, and they rebuilt it in Berlin. Well, there's another on here I've got the pictures, and then down below you can see at the Brandenberg Gate where Obama made his speech. It's built. It looks just like it.
Right? Can we go back in time just a little bit, Steve? The reason why I'm asking to do that is because I just put up a picture of this Pergamon altar in Denver, Colorado, when Obama accepted the Democratic nomination.
Yeah.
And so, and that's the exact same thing, isn't it?
Well, what ended up happening? Okay, so we look at the Roman Empire and how they had they had a number of Antichrist figures, right? Because it says about the throne of Satan. The first abomination was Antiochus Epiphanes, and then you got Nero, and then you got Titus. And it stayed in the Roman Empire until it was transferred over to Berlin. And then who rose to power there? Adolf Hitler, right?
Right.
And he drew his power from that Brandenberg Gate. That's where all his greatest speeches were, and it was known of him that he hypnotized the people, and they were so sucked into his power. I mean, he was worshipped. Hail Hitler, right? And so you've got this whole stretch, but then you've got Obama going back. Now, here's one thing that we need to understand. Before Obama built an altar to Zeus in Denver, he went to Berlin 1 month before that.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, on July 4th of 2008, and this is all documented here, that he had a campaign stop in Berlin. Now, do you guys remember that?
Hey, is that
happened?
Is that the same one where they were just recently comparing it? On this last visit, Obama had to invite 6,000 people, and the last time he went to Berlin, there were like 600,000 that were just mobbing him.
Yeah, 200,000 the last time, and so he was an idol figure, and we're just loved everywhere, right? Nobody knew anything about him, and so everybody loved him. The first Black American president, wow! And so, well, anyway, but it's kind of an interesting chain of events that before he went to Denver, he went to Berlin. So I don't know if there's a spiritual, mystical reason that he had to go to Berlin first. But then 1 month later, 24 days later, it was the 28th of August. So it was, he went to Denver, had his acceptance speech of the nomination for president at Mile High Stadium in Denver, and he had the altar of Satan as his stage. That is an altar of Satan. That is the Zeus altar right there. And see, if you compare the two pictures, right where the altar of Zeus is,
Uh-huh.
that's where he put his podium, right there on the altar. So it's this throne of Satan is right where he stood, and that's the big famous speech. Right there was where the big famous speech came out, and this is all documented. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. And if you play that backwards,
Thank
thank you,
you,
Satan.
Satan. Yep, I've
Thank
seen
you,
that.
Satan. That was the throne of Satan right there where he did that, and he drew and sucked all these people in, and he drew his power from that. Well, okay, so now we go through time, and you know, he he's he's losing popularity, right?
Oh yeah, just a little bit.
Okay,
His popularity has dropped 8 points in the last month.
so I mean, if we're talking about people thinking that Obama can't be the okay, number one, we're going to talk about the abomination that has occurred, right? That I have documented, and we have to talk to people, and we have to walk them through how that could possibly be, because people are not expecting that. But this is all part of the biblical scenario of him growing in popularity, of his becoming an idol figure, and then losing popularity, breaking the covenant. I mean, it's all part of the biblical scenario, and it's just people need to really open their eyes and pray, and really needs a lot of discernment to understand exactly what's happening. But so he goes to Denver, and he sets up the throne of Satan as part of his, and now he goes back, and now this is the first time that he was be able to speak, because they don't let candidates speak at the Brandenberg Gate. You have to be an actual standing president. That's why the first time he went there, it was at the Statue of Victoria on the other side of town. This one was now at the Brandenburg Gate, but if you look at it, is the it looks just like the throne of Satan. Now, another interesting thing came out today, and I sent this over to PP Simmons, where I'm a team member now, and they put out an article on it. But it just came out today is what the first I heard of it. Angela Merkel is Hitler's daughter, and there's an article about it, and she was artificially inseminated. The mom was artificially inseminated 9 years after Hitler died. In 1954, she was born. She was born through artificial insemination from Hitler's semen.
Right, I'm looking at that right now. It's from the it's from the website, the Library of Most Controversial Files. It says Angela Merkel, Hitler's daughter.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
incredible. So, basically what ends up happening there is that you've got the bloodline of Hitler passing on torch. And then you've got the Pergamos altar that was moved originally from Pergamos to Berlin. And now mystically, it's already been moved to Denver, because he built an altar there, and he called on the power of Satan right there and built a throne in Denver. And they're setting up the New World Order base there. I mean, that's Denver, the home of the New World Order. That's the biggest news about all the bunkers and the airport. And I have a second article called the Pergamos, the Throne of Satan, from Pergamos to Berlin to Denver, and then a question mark. And that's documented. And there's 5 things there. That's hypothesis, because, could be. I don't know, but this first one is basically all fact based on history. The
Right.
second one is a hypothesis that I put out.
Okay. Now, there was something that was interesting about the dates of Angela Merkel's birth, and the date that there's some, I remember reading this article very quickly earlier, and something equaled 6 score 306 through 666. You know what that is?
I don't. No, I didn't. I didn't dig more into that. I didn't really have time today. I just sent an article over to PP Simmons. They actually put something on their blog about it, but I didn't. I didn't dig into the numbers on it.
Okay. It's just really interesting to me how all of this stuff, well, I shouldn't say all of it, but how a lot of it is, you can relate it to the study of numbers, numerology. Is numerology a really big thing for the Satanists, and if so, why?
Well, the everything that I've documented came out of came from the actual date of the abomination that I documented
Uh huh.
was something that really tied in with numbers. I mean, ever since you've got all the 9/11 stuff, and then you've got 3/22 is the big skull and bones date. Well, that was the actual date of the abomination, was the March 22nd. And then you've got 666. And then before May 1st, I actually documented if World War III would start on May 1st. I documented it a few days early, and it was all tied into the number 237 because May 1st was the is the anniversary of the Illuminati, and they were born May 1st, 1776, and this year was 237, anniversary number 237. Now 237 is a huge number. They've got movies. I mean, they just put out a movie called Room 237, and they got all it goes back to The Shining. There's all kinds of movies. I've got that documented too on but anyway, Obama on May 1st in his speech came out and said year number 237 or something like that. I've got it documented on that. He came right out and said the number. And so it ties in. I mean, Illuminati is front and center. It's the New World Order. It's all in code. And all the stuff that he said in Berlin in the speech was all coded. Everything that they don't have is what they said they do have, and everything they do have is what they said they don't have. Like they do have barbed wires and tanks. He said, no, there's no tanks, there's no barbed wires. All the FEMA camps are all ready to go. So it's all coded. They know exactly what they're doing. And Obama came off as kind of people are saying that he really botched that speech in Berlin. Well, no, that's all playing into the hands of people just to make people think he's so stupid. He could not be the guy. Well, they know what they're doing. Obama's a smart guy.
Yeah. Okay, Steve. I'm looking at your website again, Trumpet for My People, and I'm on rethinking the Abomination of Desolation. Now, a while back, you said that when Obama had gone to Bethlehem and stood in the place where Christ was born, that was the Abomination of Desolation. Now, in my religious upbringing, and I have to admit that I am not a biblical scholar, but in my religious upbringing, I always was taught that the abomination of desolation would be when the Antichrist stood in the rebuilt Jewish temple, because it also says in that verse that when he does that, then the daily sacrifice would be taken away. And that's what really bothered me about your initial interpretation of the abomination of desolation, because obviously the Israelis don't have the daily sacrifice yet, or again. So how can it be
Well,
taken away?
okay. Now, there's a number of things that we have to look at. I know that people don't understand how they could reinstate the sacrifices since there is no temple. But carefully looking at this, and this is documented in the abomination document, the abomination of desolation fulfilled. It's documented how the sacrifices were officially by the state of Israel, officially reinstated in 2008. 2008. They don't have a temple, but they set up a place close to the Temple Mount, and they would do the Passover sacrifices, and they've been doing those since 2008. And then this year, in conjunction with Obama's visit, okay, an article came out that the government has nixed the official sacrifices. People were still doing them in their homes and on their own, right? But the official sacrifices were canceled, and there's an article on that. But there's a lot of things that have to do with the abomination that are based on interpretation. But because it goes back to the book of Daniel and it links to all the math, that Daniel, it was all based on math. So we have confirmation on so many different levels, and people need to just take a look at all that information. Now, can I just go on, or do you?
Yeah, well, I was actually going to talk to you, or ask you to continue about how, that how your theory about the abomination of desolation has evolved, because here on June 20th, you've got an article entitled "Rethinking the Abomination." Can you talk about that, please?
Now, okay, that's not like rethinking it from based on what I've documented. It's for people, and maybe I should retitle it. Maybe I'm throwing people off by that.
You threw me off.
What I want to do is I want people to, or maybe I should, put researching, but it's to get people to think about the abomination kind of out of the box, kind of get past all the original thoughts of what it was and just to rethink about it. That's the idea of this article, because there's most people don't know really what it is exactly. I mean, they just say it's, Jesus is gonna. There's thousands of theories about what is supposed to happen and what that is, and because it hasn't happened, right? Or now it has. From my documentation, people have to look at that. But because it hadn't happened, people can imagine all they want, right, about what they think it's going to be. But once it happens, then it's like, whoa. And so I want to walk through this real quick before I actually get into the documentation of the abomination, because to get there, people know there's no way that can happen. So let's walk through this. The rethinking the abomination. First and foremost, let's just start right at the Bible, Matthew 24:15, and this is very clear about what we can look for and what to expect. And I mean, we just got to go right here. These are the words of Jesus. This is the clearest passage we can get about what to expect. Okay? And it's not, we just have to take it one step at a time. So Matthew 24:15 says, "When you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand." Okay, now this 24:15 was after all the other signs. The disciples came to him privately and said, "What will be the sign of your coming? When will be the end of the age?" So he takes them through the beginning of sorrows. He takes them through the wars and the rumors of wars. And then he says, the gospel will be preached into the end of the world, and the end will come. And then he says, when you see the abomination of death. Okay, so this is the last sign before the great tribulation begins. It says, Matthew 24:21, then there will be great tribulation. So it goes right into it. He took them all the signs, the gospel will be preached. And then when you see the abomination, there will be great tribulation. It goes right into it. So when he says, therefore, when you see the abomination, who is you? Okay, who's he talking to? We have to understand that, because people think that we're not going to see it. People think that, he's talking to the Jews. Okay, the disciples came to him privately on the Mount of Olives. Go back to verse 3. And they were saying, when is the sign of your coming? And Jesus was clearly talking to them. This was his inner core. This would come his church, his followers. This was not a public discourse. Okay, It was a private conversation. And he said to them, he said to his disciples, when you see, okay, he was not talking to the Jews, because the disciples, although they were Jews, they were becoming followers of Christ, Christians, and those disciples became the church. Okay, the Jews right now, even then in the time of Jesus, they were not as a religious body and as a nation, they rejected Christ, and they still do. So Jesus was not talking to the Jews because they're not looking for anything that Jesus would say. They don't, he's not the Messiah according to them yet, and they don't. Matthew is not part of their religion. Okay, so when you see, he's talking to the disciples, and then it says when you see, okay, and this is something we really need to grab onto. When you see the abomination. Okay, Jesus is talking to his church, his followers, and he said to us, right? We're his church. He said to us, when you see the abomination. Now, if he told the church that they would see the abomination, shouldn't we expect to see it? But there's so many people that say, no, the abomination will not happen in my lifetime. No, the rapture happens before. That can't happen. There's no temple, right? Okay, well, we'll get into that. There's more down that will clarify. But for right now, we need to understand, when you see, we should expect to see the abomination. And that confirms 2 Thessalonians 2, where it says, the day of the Lord will not come until the lawless one is revealed. Okay? That is a direct confirmation to that. Now, number 3, this is very important. Number 3 is so important, and everybody gets lost here. I'll just say this right off the bat. The whole world is lost on this. I mean, very few people can see it. And it's not about me. God gave me a revelation, and there's a long process that took place for me to get this. And I didn't look for it. I did not look for this. God revealed this. But it says, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet. Spoken of by who? Daniel the prophet. Okay, Jesus did not say, when you see the abomination spoken of by the prophets. Okay, he did not say, when you see the abomination spoken of by the apostles. He sent us to the book of Daniel. Only Daniel. That's all. Everything we need to know about the abomination is in Daniel. It's only in Daniel. And the biggest error people can make is to try to think that Paul or Jeremiah or Ezekiel or even John would show us this event. Jesus sent us to Daniel.
Okay.
New Testament.
Well, yeah. Well, let me ask you a
Okay.
question. When he singles out Daniel the prophet, did other prophets in the Old Testament speak of an abomination of desolation?
Nope, only
No,
Daniel.
just Daniel. Okay, so then he was
Yeah.
he meant to say, this is the one you need to pay attention to, right?
Okay, yeah. So the word abomination, if people go out and they talk about Paul, right? They look at Paul and they look at the characteristics of the Antichrist, and they confuse that with the biggest thing people confuse it with is when Paul says he's going to sit in the temple and declare himself to be God. That is not the abomination. Number one, the word abomination is only used 6 times in the New Testament in the King James Version, and 2 of those are directly talking to the abomination of desolation. Jesus gave both of those, and both times he sends us to Daniel. Paul did not use the word abomination nor desolation, not once in all of his writings. So anything that Paul's talking about is separate. He's not talking about the abomination of desolation. So that is a separate event that people think that just because, okay, with the abomination of desolation, now I'm going to lump all the details of the Antichrist, and that's all got to be fulfilled. No, there's still stuff that hasn't been fulfilled. There's still stuff that in the future has got to be fulfilled. There's a lot that's already been fulfilled, but we can't dump it all into the abomination and say that this hasn't happened, so he can't be. No, the abomination is an event. And then I went into the Old Testament, and the term abomination of desolation is only used 3 times in the Old Testament, and all 3 of them are in Daniel. There's no other place to look.
Okay.
Okay. So now number 4. These are all very important points. Standing in the holy place. Mark 13:14 also says, standing where it ought not. Okay. Now, people get this mixed up and they say, well, Paul is talking about the temple and he's going to sit on the altar, right? Jesus clearly said standing in the holy place. He didn't say sitting on the temple on the altar. He said standing in the holy place. Now, what is okay, so it's not sitting, it's standing. All right, he stands in the holy place. Now, number 5, standing in the holy place. Now, Jesus said that the abomination would take place when when he stands in the holy place. Was the temple the holy place? Yes. Now, is that the only holy place that exists? No. Now, Jesus said standing in the holy place. He did not say standing in the holy place in the temple. And he didn't, it's a holy place when he stands in the holy place.
Right. Maybe I'm getting ahead of you, but isn't the temple separated into a couple of different holy places? You've got the holy place and the holy of holies.
Here's the thing. It's not abnormal for anybody to stand. The holy place is a place where people stand. That's a place of worship where the people go in and they do their, the priests go in and they do their activities. And then it's the most holy place. But even there, it's not wrong to stand. The priests don't go in and bow in there and get on their knees or whatever. They stand and they do all their offerings. They're over an altar. They're standing over an altar. So anyway, he didn't say the most holy place in the temple. He just said holy place. Okay. And now I've got a picture here, and if you look at the temple, the holy place is the common area. And so what would be the problem with standing in there? Everybody stands in there. That's not an abnormal situation at all. See, Jesus is not talking about the temple, and it's just that's where we have to realize that there's another holy place. There's another holy place, and that's why we have to understand our guidelines and our map that Jesus gave us. Daniel explains exactly what the holy place is. And Daniel does not mention temple.
Okay, so you're thinking that the holy place is the Church of the Nativity, is that right?
Well, that gets us into our next article. Yes. Now, if Jesus was talking about, now just this last question, right? Now, if Jesus was talking about the Holy of Holies or the most holy place, would not he have said exactly what he means, right? He just said the holy place. He did not say the Holy of Holies in the holy temple of God. He did not say the most holy, but he just said holy place. Now, then it says, let him who reads understand, and simply stated that just means you need to pay careful attention to what is happening and careful attention to what I'm saying. We can't just glance over it and think, oh, I know what. I just turned on my fan. If that affects the sound, let me know.
Actually, it sounds fine.
Okay, you can't hear. Okay. Now, let's move into the next document. And we'll go into the Abomination of Desolation fulfilled. Okay. Now, I didn't know exactly what to look for or what to expect. But with everything else happening in the world and in our time frame, and also, I mean, if you want to read an experience that really helped me understand that God was leading me in a special way to be able to document these findings, with my family, I received a sign from the Lord in December. There were 20 witnesses to this sign. It's documented. It's a testimony. And that was basically for me that just to understand God was leading me specifically, and he was going to be showing me some things, and it was just kind of like a recommissioning and anyway, between that and all the other things that are happening in the world, I mean, all eyes on Jerusalem, right?
Right.
I mean, give me a break. Barack Obama going Passover, this is his second term, okay? He did not go to Israel once in his first term. And so all of a sudden, second term starts, and then the dates line up with Passover, and then something that actually P.P. Simmons put out. And I was not with P.P. Simmons yet. They just brought me on about a week and a half ago as part of their team now. But this whole thing kind of got us together. But it was something that they put out, and it just got my, it got me going with just investigating more. But they said Obama is going to arrive in Israel the same day Jesus came into Jerusalem, on the 10 Nissan. And he's also coming in on a donkey with the Democratic Party symbol, right? So this whole thing, all eyes on Jerusalem, all eyes on Barack Obama, all eyes on every little detail. I did not know what to look for right off the bat. But as I just kept on the abomination and as I kept on the details of the trip, it became evident to me that the abomination had happened, and there was a number of things that had to take place, and I did not understand it right off the bat, but it was just this big puzzle that all kind of started coming together. And as we walk through this document, we see that basically what I've got documented here. The Abomination of Desolation has been fulfilled. It was fulfilled on March 22nd, 2013. And if that is true, then that is the biblical unveiling of the Antichrist. I mean, that is the moment in time where Jesus said, when you see this, this is the moment where the Antichrist is revealed. I mean, this is the event.
Right.
And Jesus was so clear about it. When you see this, I mean, this is something that the world needs to see. It's not like it's something that now. And then the other thing is, people ask, why are you so worried about the Antichrist? Because I have to talk about this all the time. Why are you so concerned? Shouldn't be looking for Christ? Yes, but Jesus said this is the last sign before the Great Tribulation and the last sign before his coming. And so this is the sign of his coming. So by understanding this, I can know now is the time to raise my eyes and to look up, for my redemption draws nigh, And so basically for Barack Obama to be the Antichrist, he'd have to fulfill the prophecies and the characteristics of this figure on 3 different levels. It's not just this one event, and because of this one little picture I got in here, I'm going to say he's the Antichrist. No, slow down. This is a huge documentation. There's a lot of information, and it all confirms on 3 different levels. Okay, the first level is the abomination itself, the Abomination of Desolation details. There's the timeline of Daniel's 70 weeks that goes back all the way to 1947. And these are all into math. Daniel's prophecies, I mean, when you look at Daniel, and we'll get into that, but it's all tied into math and the number of days and years and weeks, right?
Right.
And then you've got the characteristics and specific prophecies pertaining to the Antichrist on 3 different levels, because none of this would mean anything if Barack Obama did not fulfill any of the characteristics. But he's fulfilling all of them. The abomination details are fulfilled. The timelines of Daniel 70. I mean, we've got it all here. We got it all. So the Abomination of Desolation from Daniel. Okay, like I said, we have to go through all the texts in Daniel. There's basically only 5 texts in the Bible. There's only 5 verses in the Bible that describe the Abomination of Desolation. Only 5. Okay? It's not spread out around the Bible. Jesus talked about it twice in his 2 Gospels. And Daniel talks about it in 3 verses. That's it. There's no other place that we can look when it talks about the Abomination of Desolation. It's these 3 verses in Daniel and 2 other verses in Mark. So it talks about there will be a 7-year covenant with many. The abomination will occur 3.5 years after the covenant starts. That will be the middle of the week. This will bring an end to sacrifice and offering. By forces, number 4, by forces mustered by him, the Antichrist, the sanctuary fortress shall be defiled. And in this fortress will be placed the abomination of desolation. And then the abomination occurs exactly when the Antichrist stands in the holy place. Mark also confirms standing where it ought not. Okay, so as I walk through these details.
Well, let me ask you a question there, Steve. Let me interrupt you for a second. I'm sorry. As a writer, words have meanings, and when Daniel or Christ are saying that the abomination of desolation is standing where it ought not, it as an article refers to a thing and not a person. Can you maybe clear that up a little bit?
Yeah. As we look at these verses, okay, Daniel 9:27. Okay, let's look at Daniel 9:27.
Looking right at it.
Yeah. Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wing of abomination shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate. So here we talk about he confirming a covenant, and he will bring an end to sacrifice and offering. And then in Daniel 11:31 it says, forces shall be mustered by him. They shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Then they shall take away the daily sacrifices and place there the abomination of desolation.
Right. Now that's exactly my point. They're going to place the abomination of desolation someplace. And that is also in line with what I've learned in the past, is that the abomination of desolation is actually an idol in the image of the Antichrist that people are going to be forced to worship. I think we're right here on the cusp of finding the truth here, brother. Keep on going.
Okay.
Let me have it.
Okay, now when it says the forces shall be mustered by him and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Okay, we've got to understand what we're talking about, what we're looking at. Let's say we're talking about, okay, where does it say? Let's see. Yeah, right there in Daniel 11:31. Forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. That is the place that is being talked about, the sanctuary fortress. Now, that sanctuary fortress, that is exactly what the Church of the Nativity is known for. Now, it says, forces shall be mustered by him. They shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Well, back in 2002, the sanctuary fortress, the Church of the Nativity, was attacked and desecrated by the Palestinians. And it was actually turned over to them by UNESCO in 2002. Now, this is all documented. The article here documents that. Okay, but what did they do in 2002? What did they do to desecrate and they shall defile, forces will be mustered by him, and they will defile the sanctuary fortress. They used hymnals and Bibles as toilet paper in the Church of the Nativity. They went in and they desecrated the location, and then it ended up, and now it belongs to the Palestinians. This is no longer even Israel's. It was given over to the Palestinians in 2002. So now we have to realize, who did Obama go into the Church of the Nativity with? Do you remember that trip and who he was with?
I actually had the pictures up here a little bit ago. Tell me.
He was with President Abbas of
Oh
United
yeah, that's
Nations.
right, Mahmoud Abbas. I remember that.
See,
Yeah.
it belongs to them. They're the ones who desecrated it.
Let me ask you a question,
And they
Steve.
and he goes back in with them, and they place him there. I mean, this is, whether it's a, people think it's a thing, but they brought him in. They took, they were the ones that desecrated it by force. And now he comes in with them, joins with them in their desecration, and goes into this holy place where no one, and we can, that's later on, but that actual location where he stood is a place where nobody stands. What were you going to say?
Oh, I remember. Why is it, do you think, that the Jews are so willing to let Muslims trample all over not only Christian uh, holy places like the Church of the Nativity, but their own on the Temple Mount? I recall back in 1967, well, I wasn't there personally, but I've read about it. The Jews were on the verge of taking everything. They could have had the keys to the Temple Mount. Matter of fact, they had the keys to the gates of the Temple Mount in their hands, and they gave them right back to the Arabs that have been the caretakers of it ever since the Ottoman Empire. So what's the deal with that? Why in the world would they literally give the keys to their future to their enemies?
I mean, all I can say is that the Israel that stands right now is not the Israel that, you know, that that was that was promised the promised land. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, the leaders of Israel since the time of their rebirth in 1947. I mean, they've all been part of the Zionist Illuminati New World Order. I mean, I don't see how Benjamin Netanyahu could do what he does, really trying to protect Israel and really looking out for Israel. Um, I mean, you look at the reception that he gave Obama. Okay, I mean, you know that when in September when Netanyahu was in New York for the nation for the General Assembly. That was actually the same day. You know that on it was actually the Day of Atonement, September 26, 2012. Ahmadinejad stands up in the United Nations and he declares the coming 12th Imam Mahdi, and all the nations stood up and erupted in applause.
Right.
I mean, right there for me, that finalized the great apostasy. The world has accepted the Antichrist, and I think it was the same day that Obama stood up and said, "We will not allow the name of Islam to be, or the."
Yeah, we will not allow the attackers of Islam to be victorious or something like that. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
him.
I can't remember the exact
Yeah,
quote.
he said
So
that in his
anyway,
book Audacity of Hope too. He said that should the winds of change blow against the Muslims, that he would stand up on their behalf too. So yeah.
so you look at the Netanyahu, right, and you look at the trip that he made to New York. You know that Obama did not even meet with him.
Oh no, he was
Obama,
busy getting his beauty sleep for David Letterman the next night.
Yeah. Oh no, he went on the View because he said, "I'm eye candy for you. I came here because I'm eye candy for you." That's what he said on the View, and that was the same time he should have been having lunch with Netanyahu. He sent Hillary Clinton to have lunch with Netanyahu, and he went on the View. Okay. So anyway, Netanyahu comes to the United States. He gets totally ignored by Obama, but then Obama comes to Israel and they give him the royal treatment. They put an ice statue up for him. They canceled the sacrifices for him. They gave him the royal treatment. What has he done? I mean, why would Netanyahu do this? He knows Obama is not working in their favor. He knows that.
You know,
Obama,
anybody that has half a brain would know that Obama is no friend of the Jews. Look at the person that he just put up as or nominated as the new UN ambassador or United States ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power,
Yeah, and
in not
she
too
just
long ago.
and she's calling for. She's actually, if there's no peace deal that can come about, she's calling for genocide in Israel.
That's right. Matter of fact, I just put out a story about that the other day. Anybody wants to watch it can click this link right here.
And so as we move on through the abomination, basically what ended up happening was he stood in the holy place, in the grotto, in the sanctuary fortress, just like it's Daniel explains it, and that's exactly what happened. He stood there in the sanctuary fortress, in the grotto, where, I mean, I've got pictures on my blog here of all the people. When you go in, I bet people right now who have been there are listening to this radio program. You've been there, and you know that is a holy place. That is a holy place, and you don't stand in there. That is the birthplace of Jesus Christ, and people go in and they show respect. They bow down. Most people are crawling on their belly to show respect for Jesus Christ. You know, Obama with his typical head up, looking up like he always does, right? He's always this proud guy with his head chin up. That's exactly what the picture we took. He is with his head up in this place where he's supposed to bow, but he did not bow. He stood in the holy place. Okay. Now the other thing about the abomination is the covenant. Okay. Now, all right. Let's
Okay, we were on text number. Yeah, we're gonna have
let's move
to
on.
continue for a while. We were at text number 3, Daniel 12:11.
All right. Well, let's move on, because a lot of this is based on interpretation,
Okay.
and people are going to have to look at it, and they're going to have to really pay attention and decide for themselves and really pray about it, because it's not what people expect. It's really not what people are looking for. But when we get into the math of it, when we move down and we look at the timelines of Daniel,
Right.
I mean, there's really no way to get around it. It's just amazing. It's incredible. It was told, well, I won't say what I was going to say. I have to make sure. Anyway, somebody fell off their chair when they heard it. I can't say who. So, okay. Anyway, the abomination happened on March 22nd. We're going to go into section number 2, the timelines of Daniel. Okay, because what I found is that the date of the abomination was the key to open the timelines of Daniel. Now, Daniel, when he wrote the book, he asked, "When is this going to happen, Lord? What can I count on?" And God said, "Seal up the book. The book is sealed until the time of the end." And then Jesus said, "When you see the abomination according to Daniel." Okay, so that's a key there. Like I said, there's a long stretch of stuff that God did in me to bring me to this understanding. I did not look for this, and it wasn't about me looking for codes or playing with a calculator. God showed me what the answer was, and this is what I've documented. And I'm not telling people they have to believe this is it and you have to believe it. What I want to do, and what the Lord has called me to do, is to share what I've documented and let people take a serious look at it. But what ended up happening is that March 22nd was the key to open the timelines of Daniel. So the abomination happened on exactly the day of a false triumphal entry. It was 10 Nisan. It was the same exact day Jesus did the triumphal entry.
Okay, so the timelines of Daniel are something that we're going to have to spend a whole other hour on. We're running out of time, but I wanted to end this segment with a question, and that is, on March 22nd, 2013, was that the beginning of the tribulation, or is that the middle of the tribulation?
Okay, I'll answer that and kind of wrap it up, or you can ask me one last question. But that led us to the timelines of Daniel, the 22nd of March. God opened the timeline to me and helped me to understand how it all fit into place. But it says, number 2, exactly 1,260 days from the Obama Peace Prize.
Okay, Steve, I'm sorry. You are breaking up really bad. Let's just wait just a second because it's done that a couple of times, but it always goes away. So, okay, you're sounding better now. Okay, go ahead back to number 2. Exactly 1,260 days from Obama's Peace Prize to the Abomination. Please continue.
Okay. So we've got our starting date. Okay, basically what ends up happening, we have to realize Daniel's book is all about numbers, right? So we've got 1,200 days, it's 1,290 days, it's 3.5 years, 7 years, and time is half the time. And then there's 1,335 days. Okay, all that's really meaningless unless we have a place to start.
Okay, it's a starting place.
We have to have a date to start on to know where we're going to go to, how those days line up. I mean, where do we start? So that March 22nd, open that up. So basically, what's happening? You go to March 22nd and you subtract 1,260 days. That's exactly three and a half years on the Jewish calendar, and it's the exact terminology that is used in the Bible, 1,260 days. And that is the number of days. It's not just the general 3.5 years. It's the number of days. So it takes us right back to where? It took us exactly from March 22nd, 2013, subtract 1,260 days, and it takes us exactly to October 9th, 2009, and that was the day Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, the Bible talks about a covenant with many. Now, people are still expecting that deal to happen. They're still waiting for a big deal, but they're expecting it to be with Israel. The Bible does not say it's going to be with Israel. It says it's a covenant with many. Okay? And you think that this is the big deal that everybody knows, that when this deal happens, this covenant with many, that's the beginning of the reign of Antichrist, or it's the beginning of the 7 years, right? It's the beginning. It opened the final 7 years, the final week of Daniel. It's not like they're going to do this big deal and then they're going to play, trumpets all over, and they're going to announce it across the world. The final 7 years of Daniel have started, right? It's all shrouded in deceit. So we needed this first date and to go back and to find out. Now, okay, Obama is in Israel. He's the guy. He's the figure, right? He's the guy we're looking at as the abomination. And then we go back 1,260 days, and it's Obama peace deal. I mean, there's nothing else that happened on that day. Just Google October 9, 2009. That's all you.
Actually, there is something that happened on that day. Do you remember what it was? Something that Christ told us to look for? Uh-oh. We lost Steve. It's okay. When he gets back, I've got something for him. Okay. We're having a problem. I seem to be still streaming fine. Okay, so let me show you what else happened on that date, the day that Obama got his Nobel Peace Prize. Does this ring a bell to anybody? Ooh, doesn't that look spooky?
Hey, I'm back. Are you?
Yes, sir. I don't know what happened, but I was just talking, and I was telling you that something else did occur on that day, something that Christ told us to look out for, signs in the heavens, and that was that blue spiral that appeared in the sky. That's just kind of weird, don't you think?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, another confirmation. I don't know. That would be a separate. I mean, there's so many of those. We don't really know how to track those. Where was I when we cut off?
You were saying that Obama's the only thing that happened on that day was Obama getting the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, anyway, what we see is that, the person in question is Obama on the day of the abomination. Going back 1260 days, we see the beginning of the covenant. And now here's the other confirmation is that 3.5 years into it, they want the Peace Prize back. See, he's broken. He's betrayed the covenant.
Really? Where I have not heard that. You got to tell me where I can find that.
It's all documented. It's all documented. I can send you the links, and you can send it out to your people and connect it. Once we get this online, you can add that in as far as another confirmation. Yeah, they want their Peace Prize back because he's not. Here's the deal. Why is it? Why can we say the Nobel Prize was the covenant with many? Because he did nothing to deserve it. It was not a prize for what he had done. Right?
Right. He hadn't done anything.
He even admitted, I didn't deserve this. He said that. Okay? Now, this was a promise of things to come. And he promised. Did you know that after he received the Nobel Peace Prize, he said that he could stop the rising of the seas?
I wouldn't doubt it. He seems to be a little bit stuck on himself.
That's all documented. He said that. It's on video. The seas will stop rising. I mean, that was a day of promise. Well, 3.5 years later, he's betrayed the covenant, and they want their Peace Prize back. Because he's not the man of peace that they were looking for. He's not doing the job. And that's exactly the way the Bible lays it out as to what will happen. Okay, and then the other timeline takes us forward to the Day of Trumpets, 1290 days, takes us exactly to the Day of Trumpets. I could do a whole nother show just on the day.
Oh yeah, that's what I said. We're going to have to set aside a whole other hour to talk about Daniel's timeline because
I'd love to do
it's
that
great.
Because I mean, just real quick, people can look through the document, but it goes back to 1947, confirming the number of weeks from the beginning of the restoration of Jerusalem. And then it's all documented. And then I have a whole list of documentation of all the characteristics of the Antichrist and how Obama fits perfectly for that part.
Right. So, we'll get back to that on the next show, Steve. Thank you very much for coming on The Truth is Viral, brother. I really do appreciate it. You've got a lot of great biblical insights. Like everybody, I can't say that I agree with everything 100%, but it's a process where I learn new stuff every day, and you learn new stuff every day. And one of my favorite guests, Dr. Chuck Missler, I don't know if you know him or not, says that he's not a Democrat, he's not a Republican, he's a monarchist, and we're working for the coming king. And Carl Gallup, who I'm sure you know very well, has a saying that goes, it's very important not to be dogmatic. That's why we see so much violence in the Muslim world. The Shia have one set of ideals, and the Sunni have another set of ideals, and they believe in them so strongly that they think it's just perfectly fine for them to kill their brothers and sisters while they're on their knees in a mosque somewhere worshiping in prayer. So I think it's important that we not be dogmatic, but we also keep our eye on the prize, which is Jesus Christ, and he is returning soon. So, Steve Fletcher, I want to thank you for coming on to The Truth is Viral. I will put the links to all of these articles that Steve's written in the video description down below so that you can go and check them out. And then next week when I have Steve back and we talk about the timeline, or Daniel's timeline of 70 weeks, then you'll be a little bit ahead of the game. and you can follow right along with us. Thank you for watching The Truth is Viral. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. You're supposed to stumble on us and tweet us, and there's all kinds of stupid things that you can do to share their show. You know, put it in an email, send it to your friends, put up posters on the side of the wall. I don't care. Just get this information out there because it is extremely important. We don't have a whole lot of time left. Christ is coming in, and we need to save as many lives and as many souls as we can before that happens.
That's exactly the message. That is the most important message. I mean, if I had any closing thoughts, you know, Jesus said the abomination is the last sign before the Great Tribulation begins. People don't really understand how close we are, but the signs of the times are just incredibly, I mean, everything is picking up pace so quickly. And, you know, it says, and everybody's out eating and drinking, you know, destruction will come, and they didn't know what hit them. And people need to be ready now. The Lord is returning very soon.
Yeah, Christ said that it would be the same as it was in the days of Noah, with everybody eating and drinking, giving in marriage, partying and having just a good old time. And even though they were being warned, when the rain started to fall, well, the doors were shut, and it was too late. So thank you, Steve, for being on The Truth is Viral. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time. My name is Bob Powell. As always, God bless, Semper Fi, and hoorah.